Welcome back to Dragonfall and to the Harfold Manor, where Valclair is expounding upon his plan, which seems badly designed all over the place. And frankly, I'm a little sad that it's fizzling like this. The arc up to this point is like it's pretty darn strong, and the I just wanted to kill all the dragons feels like a fart. Um, it's being executed sloppily. The plan is sloppy. The idea doesn't make a lot of the thesis of the thing doesn't make a lot of sense. The size of this facility and the extent of the secrecy and the defenses that have gone into this, uh, like I don't want to pick at it too hard, but I don't get it. I'm also super confused why I'm being presented with an option to say I think that I agree with you. Um, all right, let's reread this and then answer him. When he turns to address you again, his voice is level. The shaking in his hand seems to have subsided. In his hams, yes. The shaking in his hams seems to have subsided. Security will be here soon, and they will take care of you. Do not worry, you will not be harmed. The sacrifice that I'm making tonight is a necessary evil. It cannot be helped. But so long as you remain confined, I see no reason to kill you too. How are you going to get Furschwinger to go along with this plan of yours? I am guessing that he's implanted a robotic control system so he can drive her by joystick. Valclair continues his work. Oh, that's simple enough. He gestures to his left. She has no choice. What? I don't know enough about the dragons. I thought they could transform, but not that they had multiple bodies? What is he about to say? The gaunt woman in the containment cell stands rigidly, her face pressed against the glass, her haunted yellow eyes tracking your every move. She appears frightened, disoriented, lost. Her mouth moves silently, her voice muted by her glass cage. Oh, is this the, like, we severed her soul from her body and implanted in some other thing? Is that where that thread is going? So the stories Green Winters found were true. Fairschwinger's astral form was separated from her body when she fell. You trapped it somehow. Yes, but that came later. In 2012, we took down Furschwinger with an experimental weapon. This device, suffice it to say, I couldn't fully predict how it would affect her. That's a very awkward sentence. In 2036, I led a search team into the socks. I had to know what really happened to the creature that I had slain. We found her alive in a way. The dragon's astral form, her spirit, you might say, had been ripped from her body by the weapon. It was trapped inside a young woman living in the socks. A mob of glowpunks revered her, treated her like a goddess. I transported the young woman and the dragon's body here where I could study them. You mean that she's been in that cell for almost 20 years? The old man nods absently. No choice. A creature separated from its astral form cannot live more than a few hours before both die. Well, then how the fuck does this work? It was the high-intensity radiation of the socks, combined with the magical creature inside her, that allowed the woman to live for as long as she has. I feel like that's very hand-wavy in a way I don't appreciate. So, Valclair seems almost eager to explain. The environment within her containment chamber mirrors that of the socks. It has allowed us to keep Fierschwing alive all these years while her bestial shell remains chained up below. Now, as for her physical form, that will be simple as well. We've drilled a series of electrical charges directly into her skull. When we release the Firewing's body, empty of her astral self, we will trigger all of the vicious instincts and primal urges left in her reptile brain. She will unleash her fire where we command it. That sounds pretty harebrained, dude. What happened to the subplots that we did about remote control bodies and things? You're not gonna use that at all? You just blowing electrical charges into her brain? All right. That's horrific, even for a mass-murdering dragon. He shakes his head. Misplaced empathy. The beast blazed a path of fiery destruction across Germany. But no matter, I have more important things to do than to debate the morality of this with you. Fierschwinge must fly. Berlin must be sacrificed, and it must be tonight. Now, where is that damned Aldrin? You don't burn a city and call it sacrifice. You call it what it is. Mass murder. Valclair stiffens, turning to face you. Anger washes across his face. Was it mass murder when America dropped the atomic bomb on Japan? The myopic would say yes, just as you are now. But they did it for a cause, to shorten the agony of war, to save the lives of thousands upon thousands of soldiers. This is a fascinating point, because in the years since World War II, and a lot of research has been done into the politics of all sides of that conflict and figuring out where, resource wise and politically and manpower wise, what people were actually up to that they couldn't see when they were fighting each other. And the general consensus in the more recent research is that there was very little reason to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and in fact, the Japanese were basically willing to surrender already. And most of it came down to some nitpicky political bullshit for why they hadn't done it yet. There's a lot of fascinating stuff going on there. But anyway, you've made a bad point, Valclair. You are incorrect. The old man is trembling now. I do the same for the good of the world. Oh. I don't have enough karma to get that etiquette anyway. But yeah, I mean, even at the time, yes, correct. Even at the time, pretty divided on it. I'm not buying it, Doc. Ending a war and exterminating an entire intelligent species are two very different things. Don't be so self-righteous. We drive new species to extinction every single year on this planet. Dragons, at least, we have cause to destroy. Humanity was born to reproduce, to multiply. But dragons were born to acquire, to accumulate, to hoard. Both strive to bend the world to their will. Humanity has conquered the air, land, and sea through sheer numbers. Dragons, however, employ different means altogether. Throughout history, they have allowed us to do the heavy lifting, while they pulled the strings. There are 17 great dragons in the world today. 17 ancient worms, millennia old, slowly dividing the planet into 17 piles of gold to nest upon, in front of our eyes. Once upon a time, they burned castles to steal the treasure we collected, laid waste to entire armies. But here we are, here, Here in the sixth world, it is no longer about tooth and claw and fiery breath. The old man's voice seethes with hatred. Now it's public relations, marketing, mergers and acquisitions. You see it every day. Dragons on the Tridio, in the boardrooms. They gather influence, wealth, power, continually hoarding until one of them sits atop it all. I mean, maybe okay. Literally, this is a problem because you have worked yourself into a corner talking about the metaphor literally. Because cyberpunk settings are fundamentally about power dynamics and economic dynamics and the foibles of hyper-capitalism more often than not. And in non-Shadowrun settings, there are typically less... like Shadowrun is made unique by a couple of aspects, but mostly it is notable for having fantastical elements, that being metahumans and magic and all these other things brought into cyberpunk. So it's not quite pure cyberpunk. But what they're talking about here is they're making the metaphor real, where rather than most cyberpunk settings where the literal, it's very literal, and the menace of corporate power over individuals and states and the world is the fundamental power dynamic against which heroic characters struggle. It has been made metaphor in this case. It's both literal in all of these these technology companies, all these companies that we've been talking about for the whole thing, but it's also metaphorical in dragons and other things. And at the end of the last game, when we were talking to Lofweir, and he's like not really a good guy, and it's like, yeah, but he's a dragon, but he's also just like a corporate CEO. Like it's easier to talk about that without breaking the metaphor when the hoard of wealth is literal. But when you're talking in mythological terms about like it blurs the line between myth and fiction and reality, which are it's sort of a sliding scale, where you can look at Lofweir going, man, I just run this enormous company, and this game could be doing the same thing, but they're saying no, it's like it's more literal. And his argument starts to fall apart because you just want to say, yeah, dude, but what about all of the corporations? Are you going to kill all the CEOs too? Because like, I'm not against that idea, but it's how do you intend to do that? You can't just like, you've picked, what was it, 17, 18 dragons? You've picked, like, that's like saying, I'm going to kill the CEOs of the biggest 20 companies. And it's like, okay, dude, but that's not going to fix the world. Especially because there are 1,000, 10,000 companies that are not as large, but just as evil, who are not only going to continue to exist and continue to be evil, but they are just going to rise to take the places of those 20 CEOs you killed. And having it be metaphorical of like, well, humanity will now take the place of dragons. He's like not acknowledging that his metaphor breaks down the minute you consider that it's like, it's racist. Like, it's just straight racist. He doesn't like the dragons because they are a metaphor for an element of humanity that he is not acknowledging. Like, it's a weird deconstruction reconstruction problem where you take myth that only exists either to like the myth of the dragon is a myth about power and fear, and in older times it was not as literal, but in modern literary parlance it's pretty overt, and in this case it is very literal to be like, these are just powerful people, and the meta-humanity or the lack of humanity of them is irrelevant to your point. You've just ruined your own point by burying it in this like half-hearted metaphor. Okay, let's move on.